I've actually been working on a startup for about 3 years, so hopefully the advice I've gotten today is true, that it takes 3 years to try before you get it right. So 3 years ago, I left New York and moved to Bucharest, Romania, to co-found an internet company called Adolmic. So at Adolmic, we are focused on increasing the efficiency of local commerce by bringing greater transparency on price and quality of local merchants. So local merchants being beauty salons, restaurants, and dentists, and the like. So in the past 10 years, you've seen an amazing improvement in the efficiency of the distribution of electronics and other physical goods that can be delivered. I don't know anybody that still buys a TV or computer at a retail store, and if you do, ask your kids to buy it for you. The distribution of local services that are consumed on location, the access to the information is really non-accessible, which makes the market very inefficient. It's not as competitive, and we're focused on bringing that information online. So we've done that through a couple of projects so far. The first is called Urbo.ro. It's URBO.ro. It's basically equivalent of Yelp in the US or Kayp in parts of Europe, which is a local business directory with a platform for user reviews. We launched that project about a year ago and are currently at about 500,000 monthly unique visitors. To Ilya's earlier point on engagement, one of the problems we ran into was, while we have a growing user base, it's largely driven by Google. We are very well Google SEO optimized, and our engagement of our users is actually fairly low, despite them consuming a lot of the information through us. So about a year ago, we started to look at the growth of Groupon. It was targeting the same consumers, the same clients we were trying to address, and saw the amazing amount of engagement that product was bringing forward. So we decided to look at it and saw it less about coupons and more about dynamic pricing and the ability to get in the middle of the transaction between the consumer and the local business. So we launched a product based on our company name called Adolmic, which is basically a daily deal aggregator. So it's a little bit different in Eastern Europe as opposed to the US, where in Eastern Europe, the daily deal websites is extremely fragmented. So in Bucharest, for instance, there are over 100 daily deal websites. And people, they don't want to subscribe to more than 2 or 3 newsletters, daily newsletters with the coupons. They'd rather find one single source. So we basically aggregate all the 100 daily deal websites and deliver that through a searchable, customized experience. The problem and the challenge we are focused on now is, despite being the leader in both the largest B2C directory in Romania and the largest daily deal aggregator in Romania, is one of market size. And the challenge we have right now is that we are looking to expand beyond Romania to broader Europe, and would love the advice of whether or not the US is something we should target as well. And see, the challenge of doing that, especially in the CEE region, is the additional legal, administrative, and cultural barriers that you have to expand across these markets, which is really, when you're coming up with a new product where you're taking both business model risk in addition to execution risk, the market size and the outcome becomes a really big issue, which to the point is why a lot of people focus on the US first. But I guess we also see that the flip side of that is that there is an opportunity to build it first in growing regions. And the incumbent player in certain segments doesn't always win that builds in the US. So Groupon, for instance, despite their IPO pitch where they say they're number 1 in Romania, they're more like number 5. There's actually a company called Colectiva, which has actually built out the leading daily deal websites in most of the developing markets. So we are actually focusing on the aggregator component of that as being the more valuable, as we see it, the more valuable player in the local space. So I guess my question would be is, what is the best way to expand across borders and to go into the global market?
Right. Well, in that specific area, how they expand globally, there is no one recipe that fits all. So in your specific space, one interesting flavor is that it is extremely highly competitive space. Like highly, probably there is no more competitive space in the IT right now than daily deals and all those kind of stuff, right? So having that in mind, just growing organically. That means, literally opening offices one by one. In your specific case, would be way too slow and way too late. Because, as you said, there are early startups in each of the regions. And being first means you capture a lot of mind share, and beating out a first player out of the market, as you suggested, even with Groupon, is really difficult. So what you could do is an ultra-aggressive strategy called buy them all out. Totally. Buy them all out.
Buy them all
Just
out.
push it
Okay.
There is one, again, misperception that acquiring companies is only possible for big guys, like Google's, Microsoft, and so on. That is a wrong thing to do. Because basically, again, coming back to that formula, engagement, conversion, scaling, if your model, business model, the DNA of that is good enough, suppose actually it's working on per unit or per user basis better than anything else in Europe, then what you could do is you could approach investors, venture capital firms, private funds, hedge funds, and say, hey, Europe deal space is very fragmented. There is a couple of hundreds of players in that space. In each local market, there is a couple of front runners. Not all of them are Groupons. So if your concept is good enough, you can raise money way beyond what your company is valuable, way beyond. For example, just assuming for a moment that your revenue might be, say, $1 million a year, say your capitalization can be 10 million, you can approach, even with those numbers, an investor and say, I want to raise 100 million to buy 3 of my local neighbors. Yes, you lose in equity. Again, the rationale here is always much better to have 10% of $1 billion than 100% of nothing. So it's up to you, if you really want to dilute to that level. Also, another thing in mind is that financial motivation typically works. It's extremely fast returning to diminishing to scale. So first million, you really want badly. Like second million, okay. After 10th million, personally, you don't really need much at all because that's more than you can spend in your lifetime. So typically after, say, having done your first 10 million, you're insensitive to financial, but you're still very sensitive to world domination, change the whole things. So a common strategy is actually to agree with delusion, raise big money from big funds, way beyond what your company is valuable, acquire companies, again, make them spread your DNA into those companies, assuming your DNA is better than theirs, make them, 3 of them, work as good as your first company, then raise more money, buy even more, and so on and so on. That's an ultra-aggressive strategy that will work only in one case, that on, again, per unit, per customer basis, your business model is somewhat better than every single competitor. Otherwise, you will not be able to squeeze them all. But I would go for that because just building, expanding organically is way too slow, way too late in your case.
Okay. Thank you.
Are you ready to buy them all out?
We'll consider that one.